You're on the hunt for a tile saw that won't turn every job into a guess-and-check exercise, something that feels solid enough to trust on a busy workday, but still light enough to lug around when the job site moves. You don't want a glossy spec sheet you'll never use. You want to know if the machine will actually cut straight, stay cool under a full day of porcelain, and fit through the narrow doorway of the house you're remodeling. Link is in the description if you want to check the product details on Amazon. When I started comparing wet tile saws, the first thing that kept me up at night was the classic, it looks great on paper, but it's a nightmare in the field scenario. I've seen a lot of contractors wrestle with a heavy stand that refuses to stay level, a motor that stalls on a single row of 12 by 12 tiles, or a water system that splashes everywhere and creates a slip hazard. The DEWALT D36000S tries to address those exact pain points, and that's what I'm going to walk through today. The real-world setup, the everyday usability, the hidden trade-offs, and finally, who should put this on their truck and who should keep scrolling. First off, the biggest practical hurdle with any wet saw is the water management system. The D36000S comes with a built-in water tray that's sized for the most common tile formats, 1836 in and 2424 inches. This means you can load a full sheet of floor tile, turn on the pump, and the blade stays submerged without you having to constantly refill a bucket. In my tests, the water level stayed consistent for a full 30-minute run, and there was no noticeable spray beyond the tray edges. That's a big win because it keeps dust down, reduces the chance of the blade overheating, and makes cleanup a lot quicker than the older models that rely on a drip feed hose. Stability is the next piece of the puzzle. The saw's frame is rigid, with stainless steel rollers that glide smoothly across the rail. When you set the stand up, the whole thing feels planted. I ran the saw through a series of rip cuts on a 12 by 12 porcelain tile, and the blade didn't wander a millimeter. The Cutline indicator, a simple but clever little laser that projects a line onto the tile's surface, made it easy to line up the cut without having to eyeball it. I was able to make a series of 37-inch rip cuts right up to the advertised limit without the saw tipping or the blade wobbling. For anyone who's ever had a tile chipping because the saw rocked, that rigidity is a practical lifesaver. Now let's talk about capacity. The advertised 37-inch rip capacity, 41 inches. When you do a plunge, means you can handle most large format tiles without needing to do a tricky two-piece cut. The crosscut capacity is 8 inches, which comfortably fits standard 6 inches. Baseboard sills, and even the occasional 8 inches. Slab. If you're doing a bathroom remodel where you need to trim at 24 inches by 48 inches, tile to fit around a vanity, the saw's 18-inch cutting clearance on the left side gives you just enough room to maneuver the material without having to constantly readjust the fence. That extra clearance is subtle, but it translates to fewer stops and starts on the job. Weight is where the D36000S starts to show its trade-off. At 91 pounds, the unit is portable by professional standards, but it's not a pick-you-pan-go tool for a DIYer with a small car trunk. The stand folds down, and the width just under 29 inches. From column to cart edge fits through a standard 30 inches. Door frame, which is a thoughtful detail if you're moving from a truck into a house. However, you'll still need at least 2 people to lift it safely onto a job site, and you'll want a dolly or hand truck for the longer hauls. If you're a solo homeowner planning to cut a few tiles in your garage, you might find the heft more of a hassle than a benefit. Because it's a corded unit, you get a steady 15-amp motor delivering 220 MW. In practice, that means the blade maintains torque even when you're cutting through dense porcelain or natural stone. I pushed the saw through a batch of 12 mm thick marble tiles, and the motor never bogged down. The downside of a corded setup, of course, is the need for an accessible power source. On a full-day job in an older home with limited outlets, you may have to run an extension cord, which adds a little extra planning. For a job site with a generator, it's not a big issue, but it's something to factor into your workflow. So who should put the D36000S in their toolbox? If you're a professional contractor or a serious DIYer who regularly tackles bathroom or kitchen remodels, a floor tiling project, or a commercial job that involves large format tiles, this saw gives you the accuracy, capacity, and durability you need. The Cutline indicator and sturdy frame reduce the guesswork, while the water tray handles the mess that otherwise slows you down. The motor's power ensures you won't